So, this is in fact a fundraising banquet. So now that we've fed you, we're going to get down to talking dollars and cents. But yeah, this banquet has grown. This is our 6th annual fundraising banquet for Princeton Volleyball, and it's grown every year dramatically. It's really, it's been quite an exciting thing to be a part of. But every year we try to, through our literature that we send out, and this banquet's a great opportunity to really clarify why we were trying to raise money. Because I think sometimes, at least my friends in my circles, now this banquet I'm so excited about raising money, say, don't you work at Princeton? And they think of Princeton, just money grows on trees and just money flows everywhere. And it's not the case. It may be a very wealthy university, but the athletic department is separate from that. So raising money is a very, very real thing. So to clarify some things that are covered and aren't covered. So covered are the full-time coaches' salaries, and as you heard, there's going to be a third full-time third full-time coach between Serena and I, which we're really excited about moving forward. Nike apparel, so we do get Nike apparel, both teams, for men's and women's, but it's pretty basic. So the guys and the girls get, I think, 4 or 5 t-shirts, a couple dry fits, they get a pair of sweatpants and a sweatshirt, but Sabrina's been augmenting, and we've been augmenting that a little bit. We really, with more resources, would like to give the guys and girls more cool stuff to wear around. So that's one goal we have. And then essential program elements for the women's team, and it's in quotes because every time I would call and look at the financial statement and call the office and say, why are we paying for this? Shouldn't this be a standard thing that you pay for women's volleyball, which is a funded program? They say, well, it's not essential. So for example, some of the video, and we've definitely gone above and beyond with some of the video stuff, but the basic video exchange for the women's program, which is mandated by the conference, which you'd think would fall under essential, is not covered by the university. So they find any way they can to say, well, it's not technically essential. So that's where fundraising comes in to be a huge part of things. So travel, hotels, food, officials, the real basic stuff for the women's team, that is covered. But then you get into what's not covered, and there's things that have come up in the last couple of years. We've had some people get injured where they can't walk and need a golf cart to go around campus, and we had to pay for that. And most of them use that in earnest. I know Brad Howard started using it much past his injury, not so much. So we were bummed to be paying for Brad Howard's sort of, joy-mobile around campus. But typically, if the player actually is injured, it's nice to give them a golf cart. The women's assistant coach stipend. So Desma was here, was going to start as a volunteer this year, but we were able to get some legally approved to pay her a stipend. But that they approved it, which was very nice of them. But we still had to fundraise and pay for that. Assistant coach / men. This is where I always get this funny, right? So I look all of my phone calls that I made get charged every month. And so I called and I said, why am I being charged? I'm in my office making recruiting phone calls. And they said, well, you're the men's head coach, and the men's team is not funded, so you don't get it. I said, no, but these were women's recruiting phone calls for the women's team, which they could have been. They could have been, and in theory, I figured those should have been covered. But they said, no, assistant coaches don't get that covered either. So only head coaches can make recruiting phone calls and get it paid for. Out of region women's travel and accommodation. So again, my first year here, the team was set up to travel to play West Virginia. Went on the trip, had a great time, came back. There's a $6,000 or $7,000 bill. And we said, we would understand, the women's team is funded, why are we having to pay for this? It was about 50 or 60 miles past the radius that is covered for women's in-season travel. So hotel, we had to pay for that, bus, we had to pay for that, food, we had to pay for that, all that stuff. Which is why when we thought about traveling with the women to California, it's a big expense compared to if you go play Penn State and get pretty comparable competition. It's really appreciated, and so it's really fantastic. A lot of families donate very generously. A lot of families donate consistently over time as their student athletes are in the program. Once they leave the program, it's a really amazing feeling. So it's really exciting. So, if you look back at the last 5 years, so in 2010, first banquet we raised $22,000. 2011, $24,500. 2012, we made it $68,685. Last year, we pulled in $86,985, and someone gave 76 cents. We cashed the check. We'll take it. You know what? It's going to go to good use. And this year, I'm very excited to announce we raised $100,000. So thank you so much to the families that are here and to those that couldn't be here tonight. But really exciting. Energy and inertia, and I think if you look at the trend, just if you can sort of project, we have to keep going upwards. Obviously, let's try to do that for next year. That would be great, but that's pretty exciting. Doing everything from cleaning the football stadium to cleaning Jadwin to doing all kinds of stuff to try to make money, and they looked out for us because we're a non-funded program. So we've been doing this football cleanups twice a year for the past 5 or 6 years, and we get $800 a cleanup, which is pretty good. So the guys cleaned up the football stadium last October. And Okay, $800, and we have one coming up in November. But you'll be happy to know I got a call from an anonymous donor who donated $800, and now that has been canceled. Okay, next up we have Sabrina King, who's going to introduce our first keynote speaker of the night. She'll come on up and introduce Stephanie Edwards-Field.
Edwards-Field, or Stephanie, I called her Steph. She's class of '98, and the exciting thing is I got to play with Steph. She was a senior when I was a freshman and was so awesome to play with. She played volleyball, soccer, and softball at La Jolla High School. Here at Princeton, she was an English major. She was a career starter. She was on the All-Ivy team in '94, '95, and '97. She was on the Ivy League championship team, '94, '95, '97, and she was the Ivy League tournament MVP in 1997.
Sabrina first asked me to come and talk. First of all, I was very, very flattered, so thanks. I'm honored to be here with all of you. And she said, I want you to talk about your experience with Princeton volleyball. And immediately what popped into my head is, loved it. But that's not very distinctive, nor is it articulate. But every anecdote, every story, every experience I thought of took me back to that. My theme for today is going to be love. And the overarching love that is, the multifaceted love rather, that is Princeton volleyball. I was 11 and I was on a trip with my older brother and my parents. And I came to Princeton and I fell in love the minute I got here. And all of you sitting here in this chair know exactly why. It is just beautiful here. I'm also from California. My parents didn't want to fly all the way over here just to move me into a dorm. If they were going to come all the way out here, they wanted to see me play. So they stuck me on a plane with my setter and another outside hitter. And I vividly remember driving to campus. She became one of the other outside hitter. And it was, you know, once we got to Washington Road, I mean, the excitement was just tangible. She was almost like a dog sticking her head out the window, so excited to come back. Along with my love affair with the university, just the love of the game. Volleyball camps and played beach volleyball in the summer, which was fortuitous because I ended up meeting my husband on the beach playing volleyball. We have now 3 kids who will be future Princeton volleyballers. And they too have already been indoctrinated. The other day, my daughter was in the backseat of the car, and we were going to pick up my boys, and she was crying. I said, Nicole, why are you crying? And she said, I'm so sad that I don't get to go to Princeton with you this weekend. So we love it. We love Princeton in our house. Rolling right into there, we have also the traditional love, romantic love. First guy I ever dated at Princeton was a volleyball player. Second guy I ever dated at Princeton was a volleyball player. Third guy I ever dated at Princeton, the most important, was my first love. Everyone remembers their first love, right? I was not blazing the trail in terms of romance amongst the men's and women's team. We were set up by our 2 setters who were dating. And I noticed last year there was a wedding, right? Yep. For Princeton volleyball players. So we've got the traditional love as well. But the overarching one and the most prevalent one, and it ties in with the team around the team, is the familial love. What is the Princeton volleyball family? The other day, 6 months ago, I was walking into Staples, and I was thinking about what I had to buy and where I had to go next. And so I was kind of looking down at the ground, and someone was approaching me, and as he came into my line of sight, I saw Princeton volleyball. And without thinking or looking, I just blurted out, Princeton volleyball! And turns out it was Lauren's grandfather, who consequently I've known since I was about 8, because her uncles were best friends with my brothers. But it didn't matter whether I knew him or not. You know, he had Princeton volleyball on his chest, and therefore we were family. It transcends just the players. I think it came down from Coach Glenn. You know, you wouldn't ever have called him a loving coach. He was more the strong, silent type. He would kind of sit there and up until the point that he was unhappy with our level of play, and then he would jump up and shout out some sage words of advice. But he was really good about, you know, he wasn't a father figure per se, but he knew us. He knew what grades we had. He knew where we lived. He knew what clubs we were in. He knew who we dated, and he knew our friends because he invited them to things like the Mother's Day tournament, and those sorts of tournaments that bring in other people who are non-volleyball players. In fact, I didn't make it for the games yesterday, unfortunately, because that guy, Thomas, was in San Diego visiting for a conference. So I wanted to stay and hang out with him. He too had a very fond memory of Princeton volleyball because he played in that Memorial Day, Mother's Day tournament with us. So it transcends just the team itself. It really leaks out to our friends and family. And the last form of love, and probably the cheesiest, that Princeton volleyball gives us, is a love of self and a little bit of extra confidence. My class in Princeton volleyball, we were a pretty tight-knit class, but when it came time to bicker the clubs, I did Cottage, Ivy, Amy did Ivy, Lowen did TI, Aisha did Terrace, Laura did Cap. So we were a tight-knit group, but we were confident enough to go out on our own and blaze our own trail because we knew we had our teammates.
It is the greatest program in the country. It just is. So, why should you listen to me? I grew up in Plano, Texas. For those of you familiar with the book, the movie, the TV show, Friday Night Lights was not about volleyball in Texas. For most of my giving up football, basketball, baseball, soccer, any of the sports in Texas, I literally played a girls sport in the 90s in Texas. I practiced after school with the girls team because I wasn't very good, and the seniors on the girls team at least appreciated that I would hit hard at them. So I essentially played anywhere I could. I played, everything from General Dynamics, big corporation. They actually had an internal league that they would let teenagers compete in. So, 40-year-old dudes in basically an airport hangar with indoor nets, wearing tight shorts and knee pads on the guys' team, getting beat by 16-year-olds gets a little funny. But we tried to play any way we could. I went to Southern California to play in the Southern Boys Classic a few years. I met a lot of the team that I ended up playing with, Jeff Cooper, Scott Birdwell, Brandon Vector. We all kind of came up together. I was a little bit of an outlier, coming from Texas. Now I think the program has Illinois, overseas, Texas, Houston, I saw that. So with my cowboy boots, love for country music, and living in Summit, New Jersey, you can come stay with me anytime you want, and we'll reminisce about Texas. But at the end of the day, I wanted to play volleyball. I loved volleyball. I gave up every other sport. I committed myself. Again, playing in apartment complexes where they had a sand court. So it wasn't Hermosa, it wasn't Redondo that I would go out and try to beat 30-year-olds trying to look good in front of girls. I would go to an apartment complex that was surrounded by apartments with guys trying to not look stupid in Texas on a weekend. So it's the same kind of concept, but we played any way we could. So I applied to Princeton. I think I'm a fairly smart guy, but at the end of the day, Princeton, and this is where I transitioned into the love of what makes Princeton really, I think, a special organization, or not even an organization, it's an institution. It's one of the few major, or if not the best university that still, I think, admits people based on aptitude and potential. I interview people globally, I've been around. Aptitude and potential you can't teach, it's very hard. Your life has been structured from 0 to 22. If you wanted to do math, there were math competitions. There were science fairs. It's not a recipe, but you get my point. You knew what you needed to do. Princeton, you've been building a program. Every time we went out 15, 20, 30 years ago, or Sam's building a program today, or Sabrina's taking the program even further, again, it's your program. Princeton University admits doers and thinkers. Okay? You didn't come here because may have had great accolades or great achievements. Everybody does. There's outliers all around the world on who can do the best math at the age of 18. That's not, and you can look around and ask any of the parents here, that's not long-term success.